Did you feel pressure? Did you feel nervous? Not really, to be honest. No. How difficult is life? Next question. Being too stupid to feel or even understand pressure must be an elite tool for an athlete. So listen to this if you're one of those people who watch Cole Palmer stutter in his interviews and think to themselves, see, he is so dumb. I got bad news for you. It's time to lock those eyes to the screen and realize that Cole Palmer is one of the smartest players in the league. I don't care what goes on outside the pitch. This guy has been pulling outlandish numbers since he was a child and still check any scouting reports, and the first thing they mention is never his dribbling or his goal scoring, it's his football IQ. The kid is a footballing genius. Go back to 2010 when the kid was still back in goddamn Wythenshaw, splitting his time between after-school detention, watching his father in the Sunday league, and playing grassroots football, and everyone around him already knew it. Just listen to what his first coach once said every game. I'd catch myself about to yell, "What are you doing?" Only to realize 5 seconds later that this prodigy had put in a pass that I would have never even seen. At that age, Liverpool City and his childhood club Man United were already all coming after him, and even then, he remained cold-blooded. The second United told him he'd only be coming in for a trial until he turned their backs on him and joined City instead. He wasn't gonna allow anyone to slow him down. In fact, hear this story out. In 2018, the Man City Academy held a meeting to decide which players to kick out of the club, and Cole Palmer's name was on the list. With all of his teammates growing far bigger than him, his performances had been in decline for 2 whole seasons, and with everyone looking for the fastest, most dominant dribblers, they were on the verge of signing off on his release when Jason Wilcox, the director of the whole academy, stepped in and overrode their decision. When asked what he saw in him, you know what he said? He's extremely clever. You guys can't even see the things he's seeing. And over the next 12 months, after years of going home, lamenting to his father that he just wished he was bigger, Palmer jumped up from 5'7" to 6'2" in a flash. Just 1 year later, not only was he captain in Man City's under-18s to the league title, putting down 20 goal contributions in 1,100 minutes, but he had put them in the final of the FA Youth Cup, where he assisted their first to level the match, then scored the winner, and lifted up his jersey to show a picture of Jeremy Whiston, his former teammate who tragically took his own life after City refused to help him find an agent after dropping him from the academy right in the middle of the pandemic. As Palmer would go on to say off the pitch, "I may not be the loudest guy, I don't say much, but once there, it all comes out, and over the next 3 years, it would not be any different. The only problem was that the reward never came." The next season, they got in training with the first team permanently, while still playing mostly with the under-23s, but even once the 19-year-old completely dismantled guys that should be playing 4 age groups above him, dropping 19 goal contributions in just 1,200 minutes and taking the league title again. All Pep Guardiola had waiting for him was 1 League Cup appearance and 8 minutes in the Champions League. The year after that, he opened things up with his first goal for the senior team, then came back on a month later against Burnley, and ran into the dressing room the moment the final whistle was heard, grabbed his coat, ate a cereal bar, and ran out the back door as Grealish and Foe then looked at him like he was crazy. An hour later, he was already back with the under-23s, asking the manager if he could still be putting the starting 11 despite having already played a match that day, and by the end, he had banged in a hat-trick. But even when the press came up to him asking him about the situation, all he had to say was, "If there's a game happening somewhere, I want to be in it. This isn't a big deal. I think a couple other lads have done it too, minus the hat trick." But even though this whole situation earned him a few more first-team call-ups, even though he scored in the Champions League just 3 days later and came back in January to take the man of the match in his first game of the year, that would be his last appearance. With a foot injury leaving him out for 3 months, and Pep too busy fighting off Liverpool to notice he had been averaging a goal contribution every 85 minutes he had played under his guidance, he kept hearing the same old promise: next year, it will be your turn. But even though City closed the transfer market by shipping out Gabriel Jesus and Sterling, supposedly opening up the way for Palmer's full introduction into the team, it wasn't quite like that. 10 months later, though 21-year-old Palmer got to collect a Champions League medal as his team conquered the second ever treble in the history of English football, the reality is that he had virtually nothing to do with it, and he knew it. Looking at his 25 appearances, you'd almost be led to believe that things had changed, but really, the kid who a year before seemed to be salivating a chance to play whatever it may be, was now averaging only 25 minutes of game time. Whenever Pep even let him on the pitch, either things changed or Palmer was going to have to change them himself. And so, 12 days after the Champions League final, Palmer arrived at the Under-21 European Championship, and though he started off slow, once he watched Gibbs White miss a penalty in the semi-finals, risking England's best chance at taking that trophy in 39 years like clockwork, Palmer showed up assisting the opener, scoring the second and then assisting the third, coming back 3 days later to smacking the free kick that won them the whole thing. Now Cole Palmer was an European champion in his own terms, a Man City Academy graduate with 13 years of service to the club under his belt, and still, even after he came in late against Arsenal, putting Man City in front of the race for the Community Shield only for them to choke and let go of the title in the last minutes. Not to mention that a few days later he also scored their only goal in the European Super Cup, saving the club from starting the year by losing out on 2 trophies by the time he got back to Manchester, instead of being welcomed with cheers. Pep Guardiola, the same guy that had promised him that he'd finally be made into a starter the moment Manes left, came to him with an offer, a loan deal out to Burnley. Palmer's answer was simple: no, and I want to leave. For weeks they pleaded with him, tried everything to make sure he stayed, but just as negotiations seemed to be looking up, it was announced Man City had signed Jeremy Doku, a 21-year-old winger, for €65 million. There were about 11 months left before the Euros took place, and with Palmer still on 0 international caps and willing to do anything to make sure his name was on that list, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Only 4 days later, Fabrizio Romano claimed that after failing to secure the signing of Michael Olise, Chelsea were now in rapid-fire negotiations for a mystery attacker, and just as the fans began hyping up half a dozen big-name players they believed could be their new signing, it was announced their mystery man was Cole Palmer. To say some fans were disappointed would be putting it lightly. They had just paid €50 million for a 21-year-old kid that still lived at his parents' house. They already had Madueke, Mudryk, Sterling, and Nkunku in their ranks, and now they were paying a fortune for a guy that had 1,400 minutes of senior football to his name. When Foden was the same age, he was already up to 7,000. It was really hard to argue that after spending over $1 billion in transfers, this would be the guy that was going to fix the most dysfunctional squad in the country. But then Palmer did his thing. After 3 substitute appearances, strangely even being deployed as a central midfielder on his debut, he was given his first start for the club, and straight away, with Chelsea needing to score, he pulled the ball back and put it in between the defenders' legs, assisting their only goal and taking the Player of the Match award as he put them through to the next round of the League Cup. Suddenly, all the newspapers were writing that Cole Palmer cannot be kept on the bench, and Pochettino must have seen those headlines, because the game after that he put Palmer on the starting 11. It started with a goal and assist against Burnley, then a goal and a draw against Arsenal, an assist against Blackburn, a man of the match performance with another goal and assist against Tottenham, and sooner than anyone thought, the doubters were being forced to swallow their words. As Pochettino himself told the press, he arrived on deadline day and he's already playing like he's been here for 10 years. However, the next game would be his trial by fire. It was time to face Man City. Going in, Chelsea were by far the underdogs, but after one of the messiest and most spectacular games of the season, their one chance to stun Man City with a draw came down to a penalty in the 95th minute. So with 40,000 fans holding their breaths, Palmer asked Sterling to let him take it and proceeded to smack it into the top corner. When the reporters asked him, "Did you feel nervous?" he went, "Not really. You can say whatever you want, but out there are dozens of dribbling prodigies, but to find one who, aside from all the technical skills, has a vision and the mentality of a veteran, that is truly special." And if you enjoy this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and press the bell icon. See you in the next one.